West Texas. The train slowed to a stop in the middle of nowhere. No city, no fences, just flat land, wind, and a sky that felt too big to escape from. Inside the rail cars sat dozens of German women, POWs, silent, exhausted, gripping thin coats that did little against the heat. They had been told nothing. No explanations, no rules, only rumors. Some said American camps were worse than the front. Some said prisoners were treated like animals, fed scraps, shouted at, locked away. So when the doors finally slid open, the women braced themselves. They expected guards with rifles raised, dogs, yelling. Instead, they saw cowboys, wide-brim hats, dusty boots, sleeves rolled up, no helmets, no shouting. A few leaned against wooden posts like this was just another long workday. One of the women whispered, "Is this a trick?" A tall Texan stepped forward. He didn't raise his voice, didn't rush them. He simply said, calm and steady, "You're not animals." The words didn't register at first. Then he gestured, not toward a fence or a barracks, but toward open land, wooden buildings, and long tables set in the shade. Some of the women didn't move. A few thought this was part of the humiliation. One finally asked, her voice barely audible, "Where are the cages?" The cowboy frowned, genuinely confused. "Cages?" he repeated. "No, ma'am." Behind him, another man lifted a lid from a pot. The smell drifted across the dust. Real food, not rations, not scraps. The women looked at one another, unsure whether to cry or run, because nothing they had been told prepared them for what happened next. No one gave an order to move. The women stayed where they were, sitting in the dust, watching the men as if this kindness might disappear the moment they stood up. One of the cowboys noticed. He walked to a long wooden table under a canvas shade. On it were plates, metal cups, bread, a pot still steaming. He picked up a plate, filled it, and carried it himself back toward them. No shouting, no guards forcing obedience. He knelt down, set the plate on the ground in front of the nearest woman, and pushed it gently closer. "Eat," he said. "It's hot." She stared at the food, not because she didn't want it, but because she didn't believe it was hers. In the camps before, food was thrown, counted, used as control. Her hands trembled as she reached out. Nothing happened. No one yelled. No one laughed. Around them, other cowboys were doing the same, bringing food, water, blankets, talking quietly like this was normal. One woman finally whispered, "Why?" The man paused, thought for a second. "Because you're people," he said, "and hungry people don't make sense to anyone." The first bite broke something. A woman began to cry, not loudly, just silently, tears falling straight into the dust. Another stopped chewing and looked up, confused by the feeling in her chest. It wasn't relief, it was shame, because kindness, after so long without it, felt heavier than cruelty. And then came the moment none of them expected. The chains. The sound was quiet, just metal touching dirt. But every woman heard it. The cowboy lowered the chains slowly, as if he didn't want the moment to break. When they slipped from her wrists, they fell to the ground and lay there, useless. No one rushed her. No one told her where to go. For a second, she didn't move at all. Her hands stayed in the air, fingers slightly curled as if the weight was still there. Then she flexed them, once, twice. Across the yard, another set of chains came off, then another. Some women laughed nervously. One covered her mouth, afraid the sound might be punished. Nothing happened. A cowboy in the background picked up the chains, not roughly, not with anger. He carried them away like broken tools. One woman finally stood up on her own. No permission asked. She looked around the camp, at the open space, the tables, the men who wouldn't meet her eyes out of respect. Her voice cracked when she spoke. "So, we can just stand?" The answer came without hesitation. "Yes, ma'am." That was when it hit them. This place wasn't built to break them, it was built to hold them until they could go home. And for the first time since capture, no one felt like prey, they felt human. The strangest part wasn't the food, or the open land, or even the chains lying forgotten in the dirt. It was the silence. No whistles, no shouted numbers, no guards counting every breath. The women noticed something else too. No one was watching them. The cowboys were busy with their own work, repairing fences that weren't meant to trap anyone, unloading supplies, talking among themselves. When they looked at the prisoners, it wasn't to control them. It was to make sure they were okay. One woman walked toward the water pump, slowly, carefully. She expected a shout. Nothing. She pumped water into a cup and drank, deep, desperate gulps. When she lowered the cup, her hands were shaking. Another woman followed. Then another. Still no orders. A cowboy passed by, carrying tools. He stopped only to move a crate out of their way. "Careful," he said. "Ground's uneven." That was it. Not a command, a warning. Later, one of the women asked a question none of them thought they were allowed to ask. "What if we run?" The man wiped his hands on his jeans and looked at the horizon. "Where would you go?" he asked gently. "War's still out there." She understood. This place wasn't a trap, it was a pause. And for the first time, fear didn't come from the men guarding them, but from the world beyond the camp. The next morning, the women were woken not by shouting, but by sunlight. No whistles, no counting. A bell rang once, somewhere near the mess table. Breakfast was simple. Warm, enough. Afterward, one of the cowboys gathered them, not in lines, not at attention, just in a loose group, standing or sitting as they wished. "There's work," he said, "if you want it." That word, want, caught them off guard. He explained slowly. The ranch needed help, mending fences, sorting supplies, cooking, cleaning. "No one's forced," he added, "but sitting all day makes the mind worse." Some of the women exchanged looks. Work, in the camps before, had meant punishment, exhaustion, control. Still, one woman stepped forward. "I can sew," she said quietly. Another raised her hand. "I cooked, before." Soon, more voices followed. The cowboy nodded, satisfied. Tools were handed out, not thrown. Instructions were given like suggestions, not orders. As the day went on, something changed. Laughter, small, cautious at first, slipped into the air. A woman fixing a fence joked about how crooked it was. A cowboy laughed and told her it looked better than his first attempt. No one was rushed. No one was struck. When the sun dipped low, the work stopped. "Good enough," the man said. "Tomorrow's another day." That night, as they lay on their bunks, muscles aching in a way that felt honest, one woman whispered to another, "This doesn't feel like prison." The answer came after a pause. "That's what scares me,"